Introduction of the research team members. And then I'll highlight some of the, take maybe 1 minute to highlight some of the components of the informed consent so that everyone is clear of the purposes of this research. And then we'll lead into Dr. Johnson, who will be the lead facilitator, and she will facilitate the focus group. I'm Corey Moore, the principal. I'm the principal investigator, research director for the Langston University Rehabilitation Research and Training Center for Research and Capacity Building for Minority Entities. Langston University is a historically black college and university, and we were fortunate to secure a $4.3 million grant through the U.S. Department of Education to establish this RRTC, which focuses on building minority entities, and that is historically black colleges and universities, American Indian tribal colleges and universities, and Hispanic serving institutions, research and capacity building, and research infrastructure. So as part of our research agenda, this focus group represents one of our particular projects, Project 4. And we have with us today members of our research team, starting with my right, Dr. Borsa Reef, co-principal investigator, Dr. Jean Johnson, co-principal investigator, Dr. Andre Washington, co-PI, Dr. Edward Manibe, co-PI, Dr. Datisha Davis, co-PI. We have our research associate in the corner. So what are some important things to know in terms of confidentiality and that reflects the informed consent? As stated in the informed consent, your responses to the questions that will be asked here today will be audio taped by this research team and subsequently transcribed. But your responses to the discussion of the relevant issues will be anonymous to all parties outside of this room. So you can feel assured that anything that you can speak your mind, and we want good, accurate information in terms of your perspectives, but your information will not be shared, raw data will not be shared with anyone outside of this room. The data yielded from this research will be used solely for research. And also, your responses will be collected and will be placed in a locked file in my office, okay, where they will remain until analyzed by me and relevant research team members. No one else will see any of the raw data except the relevant research team members. And then we won't link, even in the transcription, we won't link any responses to the individuals that said them. So there will be no links in terms of the transcription as well. And so we're gonna take every effort and every avenue to ensure that what you say in here is anonymous, and that when we report the research findings, they will be totally anonymous in terms of the research reports and the like. And so I think those are some important issues. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. Do we want to go through Dr. Johnson real briefly and have each person just introduce themselves, say their name? Okay, let's start here with Dr. Edwards real quick.
I'm Dothel Edwards, Alabama State University.
West Aegis Lee. My name is Donna Paulus. Indian name is Joe Douglas, given to me by Marie Hinton at the Longhouse in Oneida, Wisconsin. Joe Douglas means she who never gives up, which is very true.
I'm Brenda Cartwright, Winston-Salem State University.
Oh, and I'm from College of Menominee Nation. I'm sorry to me.
Paperwork, get everybody
I'm
paid.
sure
We
you
got
know me with
everybody
Philip
up there.
Perez.
Even Janelle.
I'm Tony Aguirre. I'm a clinical instructor at UC San American in Phoenix, South Texas.
Vanessa Rayner, Shaw University.
You welcome.
in Boston, North Carolina A&T.
Erasmus Julian from Wilberforce, Central State University.
Yolanda Edwards, Winston-Salem State University.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janelle Pitt, and I'm from Fresno State University.
My name is Felicia Yarborough. I'm from Shaw University.
Okay, very good. One other piece of tie-up information in terms of honorariums, each of you will receive a payment of $150 for your participation. I think we have all the paperwork complete.
Yes, sir.
In terms of doing that. So if you haven't heard from us in the next 3 weeks, then give Tasha an email, and she'll be checking up to make sure that everyone receives their stuff. Okay, Dr. Johnson.
Hey, good evening again, and welcome. For the purposes of methodology, I'm going to read this focus group script, and some of which you will have already heard in terms of the how we'll take care of the files later, but the purpose of methodology, I'm going to read it too. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of the focus group. And can you hear me down on that? Because I've got an air conditioner going here, so yeah. Okay, thank you. We appreciate your willingness to participate. And I'm Dr. Jean Johnson, I'll be facilitator. And this is Dr. Farragos Arias, who is co-facilitator, and Dr. Datisha Davis over there in the corners, our note taker. While Dr. Andre Washington serves as our focus group technician. And we are from Langston University Rehabilitation Research and Training Center on Research and Capacity Building for Minority Entities. The reason we're having this focus group is to find out minority entity faculty scholars' personal intrinsic factors, your extrinsic rewards, and systemic barriers that influence their rehabilitation, health, and disability research productivity. Now we need your input, and we want you to share your honest and open thoughts with us. We would like to ask you a few questions about your experiences to help us understand and make recommendations to address the challenges and the obstacles of research productivity among minority entity faculty scholars. So we are tape recording the session. We'll be making some notes because we don't want to miss any of your comments. No right or wrong answers, no right or wrong responses, simply different points of view. So please do feel free to share your point of view, even if it differs from what others have said. Please speak up and speak clearly, and only one person to speak at a time. We want to be sure to understand all of what each one of you shares. As previously mentioned, your name will not appear in any reports. We will not identify anyone by name. We'll make summary statements such as the participants we talked to said. Your responses will remain confidential, and only those working on the research project team will have access to these tapes and files. Your participation is totally voluntary. You are free to decline answering any questions. You may withdraw from participation at any point. We acknowledge that discussion of the content of this focus group could possibly result in you experiencing some emotions, and so we recognize and respect this possibility and offer the suggestion that if you feel that you would benefit from stepping out of the group momentarily, you're advised to do so and return if possible as soon as you can to complete the session. The session will last only 1 hour. We will not be taking a break because we don't want to stop the flow of the conversation when we start. However, if you must step out to the bathroom, please do so and then return. Just a few ground rules. One, we want you to do the talking. We would like for everyone to participate, so I may ask for your participation if I haven't heard from you in a while. Number two, there are no right or wrong answers. Every person's experiences and opinions are important. I want you to speak up whether you agree or disagree. We want to hear a wide range of opinions. Three, what is said in this room stays here. We want you to feel comfortable sharing even when sensitive issues may come up. And the last one, we will be tape recording on the group because we want to capture everything. And again, your responses, you will remain anonymous. Okay, so Dr. Aaron will start off with the first question.
Okay. The first question is, what are the indicators of research productivity? How we should measure research productivity? For example, journal, book, index. Which one is more important to measure research productivity?
I think if we look at the peer-reviewed articles that have been written by individual institutions, those would count as productivity.
Well, coming from a Research One school, previously, journal articles were perceived as more important or more, they were looked on with more, you got more points than a book. They saw a book as, well, you're being invited. Anybody can write a book. So we went for getting those journal articles done. Now that I'm at an HBC, I see a difference. I see that anything, as long as you do some writing and it gets published, it's good. And so it feels different for me, but I feel like I can do this.
I want to add to that. In my institution, a book carries more weight than a journal article as far as points.
Well, as a newer, I still consider myself a new person. I'm like in August, 6 years in, so I still consider myself relatively new. And I think I initially thought that being published in like tier 1 journals, that was the epitome of when you talk about research productivity. But when I think about, as I kind of share with students, what is the purpose of research? Is it just kind of like open the book and you see your name on the cover is to be used, right? So I'm thinking about now in terms of shifting, when I think about research productivity, I'm talking about journals, I'm talking about book chapters, I'm talking about books, I'm talking about stuff published in Essence and Jet Magazine in terms of impact. And that's what I think of as research productivity. Who is your work reaching, and how is that impacting them? So that's what I guess that's the space that I'm in right now when I think about research productivity. You have a range of works.
And I also want to add too that in my institution, I've also taught at 2 other HBCUs. The tier 1, as far as determining the ranking of journals, from my experience, it was not enforced. It was not emphasized. It was basically published in a peer-reviewed journal, whereas appearing at the the PWIs of Research One is tiered. There's a certain rank that would assign a point.
I would add, they've been changing a lot of stuff around at A&T where we are now, and they are going to that in regards to they're throwing around impact factor, stuff like that. So, for us, we are looking. I'll speak for myself. I'm looking for the peer review. I'm looking for impact. I'm looking for that stuff because a lot of the dynamic is changing at the university. So I need to make sure that I'm on board with the Chancellor's 2020, and that's been thrown around. So for me, the Jet and the Essence, I'm not looking. I'm looking straight for impact factor. I'm looking for peer review work.
One thing I'm going to piggyback onto that, I think it also depends on the university and where they see themselves. I'm noticing, I noticed with, previously I was in a Research One where it was impact factor, and then it was certain journals. They even went to a second step.
That's right.
And then I stepped into HBCU from 2 Research Ones, and then it changed, but my institution has changed as well. From going from more of a baccalaureate to now a master's serving, and now going into a whole new school where the focus now is they want the journals and books, but they're also looking at external funds. And I know that they kind of piggyback. We in our state, we have a hierarchy for the HBCUs, and so some people are going to be tagged to move up to a research institution. Some of us are going to stay at a baccalaureate. Some of us are going to stay at a master's. And one of the things they're looking at is, can you produce those external research dollars to bring in to support yourself?
Yeah.
And so I noticed that moved up much higher. We've made a change in our PNT criteria, and that moved up higher than even some of the books. They really want to know, can you sustain yourself? Because we need external funds.
I think for me, in my profession, it's more on scholarly articles as well as presentations. I know for me in my profession, they're really looking at what are you presenting at the conference, because that's really going to impact our profession on the undergraduate level, because they're really wanting to impact undergraduate students who are majoring in communication sciences and disorders.
My university is at an interesting place at the time when I joined, and tenure and promotion had been suspended, so direct faculty really had very little interest in research unless you were in the science and engineering when you were producing. And because of the state of financial instability, then what rose to the top defining research was very similar external funding in terms of grant funding. So that was priority number one. And as I understood before I got there, they were looking at hoping that people would go for external funding, but at the same time really minimize being able to write yourself into the funding. And then we had a speaker that indicated that was a terribly bad idea to have in higher ed if you wanted to motivate people to do this. So that sanction was lifted, but still current day external funding in terms of grants or whatever. And if you should want to fashion it in the sense that you want to support your research, that's fine. But the major concern was grant, which can even be programmed, didn't have to be about specific faculty research.
Yeah, I would just add that external funding is becoming a very important factor because of decline in revenue that our university is facing. But also for purposes of tenure and promotion from assistant to associate and full professor. Now they are looking at even applied research. If there is a specific problem in the school and you do some investigation and come up with a paper, present it, targeting a specific problem, that is counted as the research as well.
Just this one that I found interesting. You talked about impact, which means just so. How do you decide the impact factor? Is it the circulation of the publication? How many people actually take it? How do you determine the impact? Is what I'm wondering.
Doesn't each journal have?
Thomson
They
Reuters.
have, yeah, they have.
Thomson Reuters, it has a database, a listing that shows the power of the journal, basically.
And so for that, that would be the same thing for Essence or.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about, like, for me, I may not always be in academia, right? And I think it's a different language when you're talking about research, like that's published in a journal versus same type of useful information that might be in like ACA Counseling Today or a JET or an Essence. And I'm just kind of thinking about, again, when we think about what is the purpose of research and for it to be utilized and for people to be able to take it and apply it in their respective context, I don't want my work only to appear in like a Journal of Rehab or RCB. I want it to be able to be utilized to change something for it to have a bigger impact. So that's kind of like what I'm kind of thinking about. If it was just straight academia, then yeah, tier one all day.
Yeah, one of the things I remember, I asked that question on my first job when I first came out, and they talked about the impact factor, but then they also said another way to explain it is for you could use Google. Whatever it was, if you could show how many people that it is affected, or how many people have cited you.
That's right.
That was another big thing. That was even better. Even if it wasn't the top tier journal because it was 2 years, 3 years out, if you could show how your particular journal article was so unique and it has affected change within your area, then that's another way to argue it. And when you write up your portfolio, make sure you explain that piece.
So do you think we can consider H-index and citation as one of the indicators for research productivity?
I think that could be. The problem is explaining that to a P&T criteria, because nowadays what has happened is we have so many lawsuits. Everything has to be so concrete for your P&T criteria. Anything that I call loosey-goosey, where it could be, it could not. There's so many ways to argue that the opposite, and especially at our HBCUs where we don't have funding, just to pay off a lawsuit. So they've gotten very concrete. I didn't even use reserve as a word because that they've gotten very concrete. And I know from my provost, she was we had several lawsuits out of this, and so we had to revamp everything. She made everybody go back and redo it, and that was the main charge. Is that I need more concrete in this particular one. Now we're now just getting where she's going to before she's letting let people slide, and I've been on the PNT University committee, and I think she lets folks slide. Now they're really being a lot more rigid about how are you measuring that, and making departments and whoever makes the criteria, you need to explain this.
Okay, so the next question, thank you so much. Okay, now, next question. In your opinion, which individually based factors contribute to minority entities, faculty, scholar, research, productivity? The minority entities being historically black colleges, Hispanic serving institutions, and American Indian tribal colleges. In your opinion, which individually based factors contribute to faculty, scholars, research, productivity? Extrinsic, intrinsic factors, rewards, incentives. What would help enhance the research productivity?
I know in my institution, for an unfunded grant proposal, there's no credit given. However, in the same respect, a book review gets 1 point. A book review now. If you remember book reviews. So it's a disincentive to even write a grant proposal, particularly for junior faculty. We all know that 9 times out of 10 don't get funded, especially for the big grants. And they're trying to get, tenure, promotion. And they can do a book review, and they'll carry weight, that'll go towards a TMP. So it's an incentive thing. So maybe it might change for us, but right now, and since 1992, in our PhD handbook, book review carries more weight than an unfunded grant proposal. You get no points.
Ours is like that as well. We don't get any points. The only time you will get points is in your annual review, and that's up to your department. So I know for me, where I am, we give points out for unfunded. But again, there's no incentive or no rewards. Now we do have, going back to your question, we do have extrinsic factors that they have done. They've not done intrinsic factors, but they've done extrinsic. So we have Title III money set aside. And it's supposed to be developed not just junior faculty, it's supposed to be for senior faculty too, changing their research agenda. But what we've noticed is that some people are not participating even with that because they don't have the time. When you're teaching 4 and 5 classes, there is no way, how are you going to develop a grant proposal unless it's something you already have? Or what they normally tell us, well, why don't you piggyback with the bigger universities? And I coming from a research one, I know that's not the best way to do that because you always get burned. You don't get all of the resources you probably should have got. We'll throw a couple of dollars your way, but it was your research to begin with. If I was going to do that, then I'd just go to research one and get it funded. Because they're not going to ask me questions. And they'll give me the release time that I asked for to begin with. So that I think, one of the factors is we throw way too much intrinsic, like money is the answer, and it's really not the answer. Maybe if you give me where I only have 1 class, and I can concentrate on that. And I don't have to go to a meeting. I'm about tired of the meetings. It's not working. I mean, I'll even say, I'll take off 5 meetings this month so I can finish this grant proposal.
I was just going to say, my university doesn't offer tenure, so that's a non-issue. I don't. Wow. And in its 150th year history, I don't know if it ever offered tenure. So motivation for research is intrinsic in the sense that you like to get credit for the ideas, you like to bring some attention to the university, and you can do that through publications or through presentations. The Title III money, faculty development money is there for national conferences in a way that when I attend those conferences, I talk to people from other schools, they're not funding their travel as well as we are funded for. So there is some emphasis placed on attending and presenting at national conferences and finding out what, the latest information is in the field. But yeah, it's got to come from within. It's definitely not coming from a course release, and there's a lot of emphasis placed on grants. Trying to generate external funding. But if you're in the social sciences or social work or anything like that, there's just not a lot of money to get. I mean, if you can get $100,000 in a social science grant, you're doing great. It's not like the natural sciences where they're generating millions. So there's just not a lot of value placed on it.
I'll agree with you. I think that as far as our tribal colleges, we're very young. We don't have numbers like we do 2s and 1s and 3s. And you do a good job. We're not emphasizing research at all because you're so busy just trying to get these students to go through the programs and transfer perhaps to your institutions if possible. Often we have been, as people, researched to death. And so our biggest thing right now is institutional review boards where we control who comes on into reservations and what content. And then the second thing is that we have to control that interpretation of the data that they have just taken. Because so many times people will come from outside and read something and say, oh, it means this. And it's like, no, it doesn't. You don't know anything about American Indians living on a reservation, getting paid $8, and that's good. That could be good for people. If you own your house, you live with your grandma, and several people in the household. So we would put things in Tribal College Journal, which is more informal based. It actually has pictures in it, as opposed to journals that I had to write for when I graduated from UW-Madison. So I think the atmosphere is different. It is very intrinsic. We're very grant-oriented, very connected with National Science Foundation. And the money that they give us usually has to do about starting a program. So we started engineering programs, we started different things. And to have measurable outcomes, of course, is persistence, retention, and graduation, which is fairly simple thing. But my life is much less complicated than I more worry about numbers with grading those students, not with myself.
When you say that, at our public tutoring, a lot of the instructors just have bachelors, so they're not even thinking about doing research. They're just navigating through the courses. And that so research doesn't hardly even enter into their heads, I think.
Ours require masters, and in 5 years you have to have a doctorate.
Okay.
At College of Indonesia.
And see, we haven't hit that point yet.
Yeah. What I've noticed is that although external factors do have a leverage on our motivation, but our personal beliefs. For example, I grew up on a farm where I saw the enterprises of that farm dependent on mass employment of cheap labor. And so issues of marginalization became very important to me. And that motivated me into looking at things that are linked to human suffering. So when we talk about disability, rehabilitation, and development research, that comes naturally to me. So epistemology, our beliefs really are a factor also that play into this. And I've talked to some of my peers at the university. They really look at what is of interest to them, and they pursue those interests in their scholarship.
I think for me, I was looking for just some support, a coach, if you will, a research coach, someone that could help me develop an idea, or I could tell my idea too, and it could say, go here, and just go forth, and produce and be fruitful. But if the research series, but that did not exist at Shaw University. Piggyback off what Felicia was saying, and I actually had to go and find my own research coach, which I did. I just asked a faculty member last year, and she said that she'd be more than willing to help me. So we submitted a grant to NIH. It's gone through step 3 now, so we're still waiting. Now, chances of it getting funded? No, but the point is that I did it. She helped me. Also, I will give credit to the university that they did bring on Dr. Sharon Cook from A&T. And she was also a faculty coach, and she actually helped me get started. So I just needed someone to say, here is what you need to do for step 1, step 2, and step 3. And that didn't exist. And it almost seems that no one really cares. You know, just let me get my check and move on my life. And my goal is to not always exist at Shaw University. It's to go somewhere else. So I want to better myself on the research arena, because in my field, that's what's important.
One of the things I'll piggyback on what you said, when I was at a research one, I had that research coach. They were writing things down in the hall, whatever. And so when I would ask for them to read my stuff, I had the person who was the expert. They were actually the journal editor. So my feedback was totally different. So my first 4 years of experience, I got that. So when I left there, I was like, okay, I still have, now they might not be talking to me now, but I know where to go get that. I noticed with my junior faculty at HBCUs, you don't have enough of those to go around, because what happens when they find out you can do certain things, you get tossed into administrative roles, and it takes you away from what you need to do. And so I can't help them but so much, because I'm still stuck with student issues, and I've got, like I said, meetings again. I have all of that stuff, and I don't have time to do what I really came here for. And when we do bring in fools that have that experience, they get sucked up in doing service components that cannot be released, and then they still are wanting to do, just like you said, that intrinsic motivation to do their own work. So they can't help cultivate someone else because they've got so much going on, and they get burned out.
I do agree about the mentor. I think that maybe if we had mentors at our college that were in that capacity, that maybe we would actually pursue that. But it's the where do you ask and how do you go forward.
Now, I can't see your name tag, but is it your name tag?
Antonio.
Oh.
No.
When it starts at 22.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry. She was talking to me behind you when I called her. I was sorry. She was waving at me. But I was saying I can't see your name tag, so I can't. No. Yeah. So that's why I can't call you by your name. Okay, Mr. Antonio, now I can see it. And so I hadn't heard from you, so I was wondering if there were any intrinsic or extrinsic.
Yeah, definitely. I'm listening to everything, and I'm kind of contemplating my own situation as a fourth-year PhD student that decided to take on a clinical instructor position in my second year as a PhD student and teaching. When I first started teaching, my first couple of years as a clinical instructor, I taught 5 courses a semester. So trying to teach 5 courses and do everything else is definitely something. So, I definitely motivated to finish my PhD and hopefully go into a tenure track and teach hopefully 2 or 3 courses while I work on my research agenda. But, having chosen to go back to work on my PhD later in life, being married with 4 children, I need to get paid.
You did say something though that does hit close to home. you are not going to attract people into your college to do research where you can get the grant if you can't pay them. And that is definitely an issue. Plus, you're not going to get them in northern Wisconsin because who wants to live there? I mean, it's 60 below in the winter, you know? I mean, so, but I think wages are a factor.
Okay, let's go to the next question. What institutional infrastructure components can facilitate minority entity, faculty, scholar, disability, and rehabilitation research productivity? For example, administrative culture, organizational culture, leadership style.
So I think for me, just to connect with the institutional research is one thing to get the grant. Another thing is to be able to work with, finance department people who actually, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That understand working with them, making sure that you're staying on point with what being in compliance with what the grant's all about. That's the biggest issue I have. And maybe it's unique because it's RSA. I had, managed 2 RSA grants, and the biggest headache is getting them to draw down the money at the right time, getting checks cut for the students, and they seem to don't get it. They don't understand the importance because their name is not on them. They're not the PI. They're just there, you mentioned, get a check, doing their work. I think, and for me or someone to talk to them, it's like talk to a brick wall. It's like, who are you, whatever you know. That's the biggest thing.
I would piggyback off that. We are currently in a situation right now with one of the grants we have, and the fall semester starts August 21st, and the money has not been brought down for the students. So that's a problem because the students are asking, without a boss, what can we do? What can you do? You pick up the phone, you make some phone calls, but the money it's not there yet. So that administrative problem, that is very problematic because you write the grant, you get the money, you tell the student, you interview the students, you do all this stuff, and the cash isn't there. So it's that issue. We're dealing with that right now.
I think also there's too many hands in the fire. You got to do the requisition, and you got to get the chair to sign off, the dean to sign off on it. Then it gets someone's stuff on someone's desk, and then it finally gets to where it's supposed to get to. You have that same situation. The checks not coming out, the students bugging. It's just a whole.
We only write checks on Thursdays.
Exactly. You missed that Thursday. Wait till the following Thursday.
I'll tell you what I did. I had a lot of that same stuff when I first got there, and I was butting heads with contracts and grants. You don't never do that with just don't do that with the head person. And I finally started saying, you know what, I still got to get this done. And I decided that I was going to change the way I was. So I take them whatever they want. And you better not know that I'm resourceful. That's I got to do what I got to do. So some people like chocolate. I got it. Chocolate. So they do mine. They do mine for sometimes they do things. I'm like, hey, it was coming. You know she's going to come. So I finally figured out what they like. And so now they go ahead and do mine. So I've not had that problem the last 5 years. It shouldn't have to be that way. But I realized that because of the culture that I'm in.
Take notes on that chocolate.
What? It might not be chocolate. You got to find out what makes them tick. Sometimes, it's just I understand what's going on. So they'll go ahead and do my stuff now. But it took me a little while, and I was butting up against them, and I realized that maybe I need to take a step back and really do that. But to answer your question, for me, we have set up a lot of things at our institution to increase things. We have pots of money for folks. $15,000. All you got to do is put something on a piece of paper. You got to do a little bit more than that, but it's pretty much put something on a piece of paper. We typically fund it. If it's something that looks fundable, they'll help you. We have sponsored program folks that's available. We have our own professional development piece. I think that's how much, $1,500. If you don't even have to do much for that one. That's just more of a couple paragraphs and say what you need. They have travel expenses. Because people still do not take part of it, and it's because of the culture at the top. No one has said, you need to do this, or we're not going to tenure you. There's some repercussion for it. And so people are like now, like I got 5 or 6 classes. I do not want to do all of this. So I'm only going to do enough and go home, kind of like what you said. And we have funding available for folks, and they still don't use the resources.
Dr. Coker, I was going to say that the administrative culture at our institution is very similar, particularly with the grants. When I started there, a month before I assumed this position, we had a person who was in charge of grants and Title III sponsored programs. And so I was trying to determine how they were going to assist me to make my job easier. And when we got in this meeting, and at that time we were transitioning presidents, and we're sitting there, and they're looking at me and asking me about the budget. And I said, I had asked several times for last year's budget, and then I just stopped and I asked the person, well, how are you going to assist me? And I was told, well, I'm still trying to define my job. Now, this was in front of the president. My question happened to be, I had an interesting situation where with the grant funding, because I had done funding before another institution, so I understood it. And speaking of signatures, to this date, we're about to transition presidents again. I don't know whose signature I'm seeking. All I know is that I go over there one day, and they have director-sponsored programs and PI. So when I got there, okay, there was no project director. I'm circling PI and signing my name. Now I'm keeping a copy of everything. And I guess they forgot when I went back to check next week, and my name was whited out in their name. And I asked about what happened in the situation. It was like, well, I'm the sponsor. I'm the director. I said, I know, that's why I circled PI. I said, no, wait a minute, when DC called, are you going to be able to answer questions? And so that was very difficult from the same institution. And after that, there was a question about how the last year's report was submitted. So in order to, you can't submit the same duplicate. We didn't do the same. Okay, now I knew the dates were wrong. I saw this, but the date, the year before then was the year. So now I have to indicate what's fresh having been reported. So then it made the academic year not be over. It wasn't consistent with the previous year to meet that fiscal year. Now I knew this, so I take this over to my grant person so they can review it and send it. So I get this call the next day. Instead of asking me, do you recognize these dates don't align? I knew that. They had called our representative from DC to ask, and then told me I'd done the wrong dates. And I said, well, no. I said, actually, they don't align, but it's consistent with what happened. The previous year I was there visiting professor. They told me, well, you were here last year. I said, we're not in this role, okay? So now, you've called DC. They think we don't know what we're doing. You should have asked me. And then the response I get from this person who's the institution, you need to call so-and-so in DC. Why two of us calling the same person? So again, that became a real issue. So now when you're talking about refunding, DC wondered, so I give DC a call in anticipation of how things go when you're new. When I first got there, I asked from DC, could I get an electronic copy of what my institution submitted? I asked for all the years, but I think the person was trying to protect us because I guess they felt if I give it to you, you may show it, and I don't want you to do that. And so we got a new project director from DC. So when I had to call back and I have to speak with one voice, I can't say my person I speak with one voice. I was told to call you so I'm explaining to her about the dates. She was new. And so she said, well, what about last year? I said, why don't I do this? The immediate past project director, I asked him to send me one. Let me send you back what he sent me. I said, I recognize those dates don't match up in what I sent you. And I said, she said, oh, that was great. I said, I'll send that to you. Let me know what else I need. After a week later, she called me back. She said, right now, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So guess what, though? The signature that our grants person is supposed to have authority to do, They didn't accept in my report in DC because I could give rationale what I done, and you think your signature count. I went without your signature because you can't give me support. And you know, those are questions, content, and my question was, who knows more about rehab than I do? If you can't tell me what I don't know, let's talk about it because we only need one voice. And my thing is, I would fix it for the institution, but I can't go behind you because if I do, I cannot look like I don't know what I'm doing because who's going to answer those tough questions? So from an administrative role in terms of what needs to happen, if we're going to name a person in that place, they need to be supported. If we don't have support, rely on the experience of whoever your project director is, because those questions have to be answered. And you can't say, I don't know, and it's not like we're calling internal. You call it DC and lack of support.
Okay, and next question. What have been the barriers and challenges to minority entity disability and rehabilitation research productivity? The individual barriers, and you should focus on individual and institutional barriers.
Well, I would like to kind of start off. So I am at a Hispanic Servant Institution, and I am a PD as well. And so it's designated, and there are 5 sister scholars on campus. So 5 African American women that are either full-time tenured or tenure track members. So we get called on in terms of institutional service quite a bit in terms of requests. And not just, I'm laying out the context because this is important as a woman of color who's also tenure seeking. Sometimes the requests are not just within the School of Education, so where I reside, it's from other schools and colleges across campus, and sometimes I even get requests from provosts, and we've had a changeover, and then I've been appointed to president's committees and task force and commissions, so then feeling empowered and declining, respectfully declining service requests becomes a little bit more difficult. So in terms of barriers, when we're talking about context of where we're working, that is something that comes up quite frequently as a Black woman at a HSI. The other point that I want to make is that somebody brought up the importance of mentoring. So when I'm getting service requests from folks that I feel like I can't say no to, I'm immediately shooting off a text to my mentors, seasoned folks, full professors, some of my peer mentors, to be like, look, what do I do? How do I have this conversation? How do I, say maybe not now, or how do I keep the lines of opportunities open for myself if I choose not to serve? So those are just some barriers that come up for me in my kind of daily work.
I think for me, and again, I don't know if this, I can't apply it to all HBCUs, but at my institution, there's significant turnover with upper administration. We all know when a president comes in, they usually clean house, all the way down almost to the faculty. So a lot of times they'll bring in a new person to sponsor research. They have their own philosophy, their own procedures, and it makes it frustrating because you think you got something worked out with the existing sponsor research person, and all of a sudden a new one comes in and they're laying down their protocol, and like, okay, it gets frustrating. I think it's a lack of stability. I don't know how it is with PWIs. I don't know if they keep people in sponsor research for long term. There's a lot of turnover, but I know where I'm at, there's a lot of turnover upper administration, a lot.
Yeah, I think turnover is also a problem of my industry, particularly young faculty who are so eager to undertake research for promotion, tenure, and so forth. So when they realize that the environment is not as attractive as they thought, they move on to some other universities, and that creates a gap. And so issues continue to be ignored. There's low research productivity.
It's the population that I'm serving on Menominee Reservation, and we have 65% enrolled American Indian. You have to be enrolled and have your card. And the others are usually non-Indians and white people that are coming in. But the recognition of disability isn't always there. so they're undocumented. Average age is 25 years old. You know there's significant deficits in their reading, writing, math application. People don't have the money to go get diagnosed or have an evaluation, psychoeducational evaluation on them. So, but you know, because my background is that's what I used to do, that they're there. And I did a survey or research for Department of Health and Human Services for the state of Wisconsin in the 90s. They were wondering why we weren't as a population using voc rehabilitation services. And when I went around to all the 11 reservations, it was very clear we don't see them as disabled. It's Joe down the street that if you see him, you better ask him if he needs a ride to wherever he's going, or you might even say if he needs something to eat, you know. So they're described more in behaviors rather than as different things. When I used to assess Native people, I found you could have the cognitive abilities falling in the range of low or learning disability, but their adaptive behavior skills were high. Because you're still a part of this family, and you still got to wash dishes, even though I have to tell you several times, or make your bed, or take care of somebody younger, that it is not, labels are not sticking. And so, but I know they're there because of what we're facing in educating. And so I've done a conference already on universal design because I felt that really hit our population and could really help. And it was out of 35 colleges, 34 attended from Alaska, Hawaii, and then the lower 48 coming to the College of Menominee Nation. They were very impressed with the multimodal way of instruction to help, and I guess that's where I see that I would fit into research. For our population, because, you know, we love y'all, but we're really concerned about ourselves because nobody else is. You know, so we're trying to find things that will help us at our reservations, because that's the locality of all of our tribal colleges, to help them just get through school, and for some places just get to high school.
I would have to agree with that too, because it's not looked at as a me thing. It tends to be looked at as a community thing. So everything is looked in a social aspect. How does this benefit my people? Not as, how does this benefit me? And so they don't identify that because you're one of my people. You're not, you don't have a disability. You're one of my people. This is just the way you are, and we accept you the way we are. And we make accommodations for that, and we don't label it.
I think that's a similar concern for myself and for other Latinos in higher ed, because coming from a Hispanic serving institution, there's been a lot of interest in researching, especially with the growth of Latinos in our country. But I think we definitely feel motivation and interest in doing our own research and finding out, developing that research, and who knows it better than ourselves. But I think that's important. But we also know that Latinos have the lowest educational attainment of any ethnic group in the country. So, we're definitely trying to play catch up.
Just wanted to clarify something. Are we talking about the barriers, institutional barriers for faculty, or
individual and
institutional? Okay, all right. That's
barriers.
You're well trained.
I just wanted to add that one of the biggest barriers that I've experienced has been a lack of opportunities to collaborate. We've just had recent workshops that have been emphasizing everyone's sort of research area and thinking of ways in which people could actually work together to be able to, do research, publish, grants, what have you. And in the past, there really has been a lack of opportunities to be able to do that. Everybody's so busy. And like you said, you're teaching a 5-5, and then you got meetings and service, and you just kind of want to go home after that. So when do you have the opportunity to really see what other people are doing around you? What to discuss research agendas and to see where you might be able to work collaboratively on a project. But once you get to the point where you can do that, then you've got a lot of irons in the fire. And the good thing about it is you can get course reductions once you actually have research going on. So I went from 5.5 to what will be definitely a 3.3 and possibly a 2.2 by August, just by having different research projects going on with different people. So it's not all on you to do so much to sole author.
Well, in addition to a lot of work that individual professors find themselves able to do at university, it's also lack of equipment and technology sometimes. For example, it has been a battle in my department just to get our computers equipped with SPSS. So once you collect your data, you can analyze it, run it, or use that software. And also lack of support. You find yourself, you are teaching, unlike big universities where we have graduate students being assigned to help you out here and there. I think it would be much easier, in spite of the heavy teaching load, if we had support in those areas, technology as well as personnel. But those things also are lacking, and I think they add to the perception of barrier.
Ditto to the last two, those were two of my three comments I was going to make at our institution. But in addition to that, what I'm seeing is an unwillingness of our faculty to communicate, collaborate. They operate in silos. It's like they don't even know we're the same institution. And when I got there being a graduate program, I run around meeting everybody. Hi, you know, they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, oh, you mean you're a graduate program over there? And I'm like, we're under one umbrella. So, you know, with the people that we have that are capable, or if we put some minds together, we could do some things. People are so unwilling. And since I run around everybody, I think, well, why don't we do this? You know, when I reached out, it was kind of like, this is strange, but can't say no, we ain't never been asked this before. It was a new way of looking at things.
Yeah, I agree with you, but sometimes people are just apathetic because they think similar research or research that tries to generate such solutions has already been undertaken, but it has never, or it is not putting people on the red brick to move forward into the future. So they say, so why bother? So those are some of the things that militate against collaboration on a specific applied research such as this one.
Sounds like this next question, and we are about down to 15 minutes on time.
Yes.
But it sounds like this one may have been answered in the discussion, but if there's something to add, what training, exposures, opportunities, resources, or support could be useful for facilitating minority and faculty scholars disability and rehabilitation research productivity? I think you've answered some of that, but did you have something different, some of you that want to add to that one?
I just like to touch again on the mentoring piece, and I think Rainer had brought that up, and you mentioned about the importance of a research coach. And I know that I specifically reached out to some of my mentors just in the area of not just navigating the terrain of academia in general, but having research-specific mentoring and what that means. So in terms of everything from, you know, establishing a research agenda to the publications, to the book chapters, just different aspects on the continuing research, that has been very important for me as a newer faculty member.
Utilization of technology too with the mentoring. instead of actually having to physically go to a conference, capacity building, as far as technical training, you utilize video conferencing. You have things like Google Hangout video, which is free. It's very high quality video. Skype, things of that nature. People don't have the money to go to those things. They can actually, technology's there. That could be a good tool to help with the research in general.
Well, I think there are some universities that are already successful in undertaking research in this direction, like Langston. Now, if such universities could enter into a conversation generally with other colleges or universities that seem not to have moved in that direction, that might stimulate interest. Just awareness to be exposed. I will tell you, when I got exposed to this grant and talking about disability rehabilitation and development, that ignited my passion, because I was already into writing issues of marginalization, although I had not specifically addressed issues that link marginalization to disability and how rehabilitation can actually help the situation. So universities that are already in the forefront are engaging with leadership in some other universities and key personnel in departments that might start a conversation that will have a wider ramification in people coming forward.
One last thing for me is that maybe, I know for me personally, I could do research, but I don't love research. I mean, I know for me, in my doctoral program, I struggle with research. And that's not my first love. That's not my passion. If I had someone, and I'm to be honest, research, but perhaps if I had someone that was a statistician, a hard researcher, and then the area for me may be program evaluation, I'll be glad to write a proposal. If I know my role, I'm passionate about it, I'll be glad to write grant proposals all the time. But if I have to do the research, and the stats and all that, that's, to me personally, that's a disincentive.
Yeah, but I also agree with you. The situation is also getting worse, because if you look at doctoral programs, folks are coming out of a doctoral program just having done a little bit of research, a bit of qualitative, you're on your own, design your project and you are done. And yet, they are not well grounded into what it really takes to do applied research. Basic research, yes, but applied research. So I think folks need to begin to think about reinforcing the teaching of research in our graduate schools, such that when students come out, they would have, say, for example, been led into doing, say, 1 or 2 published articles. With the assistance of their professors, that would then perhaps propel them into that direction. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. One of the things, I went to an NIH training specifically for HBCUs. One of the things that I love that they did, although they didn't have all the money because NIH is cut back, but they actually, you get assigned a person, and what that person does is they pull up things of your interest, kind of like what your sponsored programs would do, but it's even better. They know that area. So you're dealing with an expert, and so they would pull the stuff, and then they would tell me, okay, look at this particular one. I would write something. They would go critique it. And it's totally different when it was somebody that already had, for NIH, had a KO1, had an R1, they had already had a center. And so when they were giving me the feedback, and then they would say, okay, I want you to go back and contact the project manager for this grant. And then I want you to ask these questions. And for NIH, the way that they do things that I really like is those people for R1s or anything above that, you have to sponsor other people. You will not get any funding unless you sponsor folks. And, one of the things I get kind of aggravated with NIDA and some of the others, it's been such an elitist group, I can't get in a group. Now, they'll fund me all day for RSA, but when it's time for me to write a research grant, and then they'll want me to come and be their reviewer. But when it's time, and I've seen those proposals, so I know that what they funded was but, you know, NIH is on animal, but I really feel like we need to do more of that. And it still goes back to, I call it the hater complex too, when you have people even within your own university, when you're able to do things, they get jealous. You know, we have a lot of times, we do get some funding, you know, sometimes training grants a lot of times for research ones we have to work on, but, you know, I need to be able to do more of that. So I need someone to help me with developing those proposals. That's what I missed from the research one. I'm gonna tell you that I was very productive, you know, although I didn't go to work for 2 days a week. But I was very productive, okay, because they would come back everything in 2 days. So we had my meetings, we do all that in 2 days. I go teach my little classes. The other days, I was at home being able to focus on that. If I needed somebody to read something and give me feedback, and they had already been through the process, so they could tell me, you need to go to this project manager, they give me to do such and such, go review for them. They didn't tell me all the little ins and outs, and that's what I feel like at HBCU we do not do. We get the same people doing the same things, and then the rest of us are trying to do things, and it's only this little group that they keep them up. And so we're never going to survive that way. The others, they pull each other up. We don't do that.
Well, that's what I think is great about NIH, because for lack of a better word, you can pimp them out.
Oh, yeah. And they want you.
Yeah, and after you pimp them out, you can use the information and take it somewhere else and hopefully get some funding. I think for me personally, I'm thinking of what you said, I just need another Vanessa. Because I don't know about your programs or how it is your university, but when it comes to my students, it's just me. And this is my first teaching appointment. And no one told me that as program coordinator, I was going to have to be someone's mother, someone's mechanic. Started good hard, as I can count, because these people don't have jumper cables in most of the country. So I have a nice car, but I don't go without cables in the trunk. I didn't know to talk about, you know, your child having a child and your boyfriend. I just didn't know, and so that takes away from me. I mean, sometimes I don't. I'm the kind of person that I prepare still because I want to make my class innovative every semester. I want to change. I want to do this. I can't do the same thing because they're going to anticipate. And I just need I need another person to handle my students' personal issues. Because I don't have any males in my program. I have females. All of my students are females. I have about 20 majors, and I'm the only mother. And I'm a young mother. Not biologically, but they all come to me with their issues. And I'm in the middle of trying to research a grant because Dr. Cook is coming back to university, and I got to meet with her. But I can't because I got Sarah and Faye and everybody else, and Shaniqua and Terry and everybody at my door because they want to meet with me about their own issues. So I just need, my students are just very needy. And my program, our profession is also very writing intensive. So I spend a lot of time making sure my students know how to research. So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but you know, they have to do a lot of research. So I need somebody that can. I just need another me. That's all.
That would give it a 10-minute sign. So we got a couple of more questions.
Okay, and next question. In what ways can National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research and other federal entities such as National Institute of Health, Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and Office of Disability, Aging, and Long-Term Care Policy assist in enhancing research productivity? Or what do you think about the role of federal research agency should be in enhancing faculty research productivity among minority entities?
It still goes back to the same thing I said with what NIH has started doing. I mean, although they're not perfect in what they do, they really have tried to incorporate, you know, I know normally what a lot of the institutes that you mentioned, especially like NIDA and some of the others, they'll give us something separate. Well, that still doesn't help me prepare for it. Because first of all, you do it twice a year. It's in the wrong time when I can't work on it. I've got too many other things going on. So maybe preparing for what they really want. I've sat on panels before, and some of the comments that I have seen when I've seen minority research come through wasn't as appropriate as what it should have been. So, for example, they ridiculed them, and then when the Much Friends came through, it was different. Yes. And so I really feel like, the expectations already is low for us anyway. There's got to be a way to either change the reviewers or change their minds. I don't know what it is, but they always assume that. And it's not just, I'm just picking on NIDR, but it's not just NIDR. The others have the same identical, even within Department of Education, have that same kind of mindset when it comes to us.
To dovetail on that, I think it would be helpful, because I've been reviewers at the national and at the state level for our state, and again, it's viewed very, very differently. Sometimes I've been a reviewer, and I'm the only one at the table that look like me. But when you're talking about peer reviewers, it should be more equitable and representative at the table. Then we get very different results.
Right.
Because now we can have a conversation and not look at me. If you invite me, I'm going to say it. I may not come back, but I'm going to be on here. So.
Okay, and in what ways can minority serving institution assist in increasing research product? What's the role of minority serving institution in increasing research product?
It goes back to the administrators. I know when you mentioned about you have so much changeover with administrators, they change the agenda. Well, I'll tell you the way my chancellor explained it. It really has to go down to a strategic plan. We keep changing strategic plans. How are we going to get to anything? And you notice some of the schools now have become a little bit more productive. They have longer sitting presidents. They have longer sitting provosts where they can get those things in place. Not where we change every other week and you can't figure out what needs to be done, because actually it starts from the top. I always feel like it starts from the top. Everybody tries to say it starts from, faculty members. No, it really doesn't. If I know that my provost and my chancellor is saying this is important, and we make that a strategic plan, then everybody will fall on board, and make sure middle management understands that, because since we have so much changeover, middle management is the ones that usually stays, and those chairs and deans have a tendency, he ain't gonna be there long, so I don't really care what he says. So we're gonna go with what we've been doing for the last 10 years. Hey, I don't like you, so I'm gonna give you 5 classes, and I'm gonna give this one over here 2. I don't care that you actually could do very well in your research. So I think that's something that we really kind of got to change our culture and how we do things.
I think something really quick too with the technology piece is getting the word out, knowing what other HBCUs are doing. I can say Langston does do a very good job in regards to, we know what's going on. You see the emails from Andre, you see the stuff. So seeing what's actually what Winston-Salem's doing, what Central's doing, how putting the word out so we can see what we're doing. So the social media and people, institutions getting grants or having research agendas or having focus groups so we can see, so I may not be able to get there, but I may be able to Google Hangout in, so I think putting the word out so we can see what each other is doing, I think that helps move us forward as far as what we can do from institution standpoints, putting the word out.
So putting the word out, bringing it, say, to presidents, but also at dean's level, and I think faculty level as well. Because if it's just given out to top people,
right?
If they have a different agenda or priorities, that may suffer. But once you also get in touch with professors, people have different interests. You might find 1 or 2 who have such a strong passion for that, and things can begin to move.
One thing I'm gonna piggyback one thing on that. One thing I noticed about our institutions, we're very competitive with each other because the presidents do know each other, even if you don't believe it. So if I give you an example, if A&T gets something, that's the first thing they say to me. Well, you know, A&T got such and such, and I said, yeah, and you told me no, you didn't give me the funding, so that's why they got it, and we don't have it. So, that's just, I mean, and I'll just say it like that to them, and they'll go, oh, well, maybe we should. Yeah, you should have funded me when I asked you to. When I asked you for extra time, you should have gave it. But when you put it out there like that, so they can see it, they're very competitive with each other. So they will. I mean, it sounds terrible, but it goes back to the extrinsic. You know, I want my school to be considered the best, and my chancellor does it all the time. He shows his little rings that we won for our football, basketball, or whatever, and puts it in people's faces. Do the same thing with the research.
Right.
So we can see what you're doing. Because if I say to them, look, Langston got this, this, and this, I can tell you right now, they're going to go back and say, well, let's figure out, I think we need to put some more money in that rehab.
I did want to mention something just from my perspective. It's something I come to, the lack of role models from my perspective. I mean, I come here and I see, there's faculty and there's administrators that look like the students you all serve. And that's not true in Hispanic serving institutions.
That's right.
Most of those faculty members are not the same as the students they serve. So, and that's difficult for us as junior faculty and trying to just the higher learning culture is very different from our culture, and the emphasis on the individual versus the collectivist approach. So, I think that's something that we're struggling with still. It'd be great. I'm envious of when I come here and I see faculty and students and those relationships, and I'm thinking, geez, we need that. So, I think that's important.
That's very important. So the last question is
Yes.
Okay, the last question. In what ways can minority entities, faculty, scholars, do things differently to increase their research productivity?
I think a lot of it has to do with their workload balance. Family life, workload balance. One of the things that I notice about those coming from research institutions, and they're very productive, or even the ones that are at minority serving institutions, they're very productive. They have a really good workload balance. They're very good at being able to prioritize, okay, I have this hour, let me work on this manuscript and get this done. Okay, then next week, 2 hours from now, if they come out of the meeting, they go back and work on something. That's something that I'm kind of envious a little bit because, we're always, to me, I feel like I'm always having to deal with stuff going on. Then we got to take care of this. I mean, I never get time to depress to be able to write because you can't write under pressure. I have a hard time writing under pressure. That's why I'm not a journalist. I can't write under pressure like that. I got to have, and then I have to go back and reread and do things. So I think that's something that would be very helpful is to have individuals who are very good at it that have been able to balance all of that and explain what they do. Because they have the same issues that we do. But they might not articulate it as well.
One more. Get time for one more. To that question, what ways can faculty scholars do?
I think one thing that's been helpful for me and my peer mentors, and we talk about this all the time, is that we don't have to, this was brought up, that you don't have to do everything in isolation. So working collaboratively has been very important and productive. And then I know for me also, I function as a single mommy and making use of my mommy and daddy so I can be on campus if I need to work on the weekend and it's Saturday and childcare is not available for 9 hours. I got the support of my mom and dad so I can maintain my productivity. So that hasn't faltered in any way. And again, I'll go back, and even though it's probably overemphasizing at this point, my mentors. This is one thing that I heard specifically at an AMRAC conference a couple of years ago, is that regardless of whatever institution you're at, and I've taken this to heart, you need to publish. You need to find ways to remain marketable. And so I've made sure to have those conversations with my dean to let him know that, being engaged in that way is very important. So my teaching load is what it is, pretty low. And I do have buyouts and release time, so that works for me in my situation right now.
And I think something that can be helpful is that once we realize as teachers that disability rehabilitation and development research is very, very important, even if your discipline is far removed from tackling content of this nature, because you know that this is an issue. If a way can be found to tie it into your teaching and invite particularly graduate students, I teach graduate students, and find out if they're interested in carrying out research in this particular area, you can then collaborate with your students. If you are not finding much collaboration from your peers, that's another way perhaps of driving this one forward.
And just one last thing in terms of flexibility. I mean, daily flexibility and time. If you got this workload and you can't get rid of the courses here, to be able to be flexible, because I know that I teach and I got the administrative piece to be in service, and then I get invited to do all this has nothing to do with rehab because I've been in higher ed a long time. And I share, I'm not going to work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I flex my time and I work when I work best. And what I find out is that I'm up to 4.5 hours a night, and sometimes I get up at 2 o'clock, 2 to 4, I'm productive. I do my thing. But then I don't have to go in and be sitting in the office at 8 o'clock. So when I'm able to flex, I'm able to make things happen where I wouldn't be if I had to be here on a 8 to 5. And so that kind of thing, I think really can free up your time, because you know when your peak times are. And if that's quiet time that you can make it happen in your home, you make it happen before you get to campus to put out on the fire.
That's good. That's good.
So that's where we need to encourage universities to say, install the kind of technology we need to do some research on as well.
And I shared that with my institution. Look, we haven't got it, but it's on the table. We're working on it.
We do thank you so much for taking time to participate in that discussion. It's been such a rich discussion as far as I'm concerned. Your perspective of views and so that. I appreciate the honesty that we've heard here. No, we're out of time. Is there anything else you want to say before we go? You're not going to wait as long on that.
Dr. Johnson, can I say something?
Yes.
Afterwards, can Dr. Truman, Dr. Raynard, Dr. Palace, Dr. Dorthel Edwards, and Dr. Mark Cooper see me afterwards? Thank you.
Look at y'all, somebody who has
This is the conclusion of the 2014 Landmark Research and Training Center Project 4. Minority faculty members' perspective on intrinsic, extrinsic barriers, research productivity barriers. This is Dr.